One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
This moon landing in 1969 was faked, at least according to some believers of this conspiracy theory. No humans actually landed on the moon. This theory suggests that the moon landing was a hoax orchestrated by the US in order to win the Cold War space race against the Soviet Union. The theory states that the footage and images of the moon landing were fabricated in a studio. However, the majority of experts and researchers have already debunked these claims. The moon landing did happen, and in this video, we will look at what the astronauts left behind on what is one of the most significant historical sites that no one has visited since. As the Apollo 11 mission came to a historic close, astronaut Buzz Aldrin took one last look at the site from the window of the lunar module. He noticed that the engine's exhaust was kicking up moon dust and causing the American flag to fall over. The flag, which was made of nylon and not specially made for the mission, had been mounted with a special horizontal crossbar to keep it upright in the windless lunar environment. But the flag was not the only thing left behind on the moon. The astronauts also left a metal plaque attached to the ladder of the descent stage, which featured the signatures of the Apollo 11 crew and President Richard Nixon. They also placed a number of small, symbolic objects on the lunar surface, which were stored in a pocket on Buzz Aldrin's spacesuit. In the rush to leave the moon, Aldrin almost forgot to leave these objects behind, but was reminded by Armstrong as he was climbing the ladder to re-enter the lunar module. From there, Aldrin dropped the objects onto the surface of the moon. In addition to this, the astronauts also made sure to honor those who had come before them in the pursuit of space exploration. One item they left behind was an Apollo 1 mission patch, in memory of the 3 crew members who died in a tragic accident during a launch rehearsal 2.5 years prior. The astronauts also left behind 2 commemorative medals to pay respects to the Soviet cosmonauts Yuri Gagarin and Vladimir Komarov, who had both lost their lives in separate accidents. Even in the midst of the Cold War, the astronauts wanted to express mutual respect for those who had risked their lives for space exploration. They also left behind a small silicon disc, which contained goodwill messages from the leaders of 73 countries around the world, as well as the names of the Congress members responsible for NASA legislation and NASA senior staff, to further symbolize the spirit of international cooperation. The astronauts also left behind a gold olive branch as a symbol of global peace. In addition to the symbolic objects, the Apollo 11 mission also left behind scientific instruments used to conduct moon experiments. One such instrument was a seismometer, designed to measure ground vibrations. Powered by solar panels, the device recorded data on the strength, duration, and approximate direction of seismic events and transmitted this data back to Earth. Unfortunately, the device stopped sending data back just 3 weeks after the moon landing, likely due to overheating in the intense midday sun. The temperature fluctuations on the moon, with no atmosphere to retain heat during the night, are much more extreme than on Earth. Another experiment left behind on the moon was the lunar laser retroreflector, acting like a special kind of mirror. It reflects incoming light in the exact same direction from which it originated. This means scientists on Earth can direct a laser beam towards the device, which will reflect the light back to Earth. Since the speed of light is known, this instrument can be used to measure the exact distance between Earth and the moon, and it is the only experiment from the Apollo 11 mission that still works to this day. Other experiments that the astronauts carried out can only be recognized by the traces they left behind, such as rock samples and drilling marks to measure resistance. As we near the lander, we come across an area cluttered with objects. This is the trash left behind by the Apollo 11 mission. In order to bring back as many rock samples as possible, the astronauts discarded equipment that had served its purpose, including the black and white camera that had transmitted the first steps on the moon and the raising of the flag to a worldwide audience. Besides the equipment, commemorative items, and scientific experiments, the astronauts also left behind their footprints in the moon dust, which are often used as a metaphor for the achievement of the journey. The paths taken by the astronauts are clearly visible and reveal one path that went far away from the landing site, where Neil Armstrong took an unplanned trip to the Little West crater. After the astronauts left, the site's condition is expected to change slowly, not in weeks or months, but over decades, centuries, and even greater intervals. Today, more than 53 years after Apollo 11, it is assumed that solar radiation has visually changed the site, as the moon has no significant atmosphere to protect it from the intense ultraviolet radiation of sunlight. The colors of the US flag are likely to have faded, and the materials exposed to the extreme temperature fluctuations, alternating between 14 days of 100 degrees Celsius heat and 14 days of darkness at negative 150 degrees Celsius, may have disintegrated and been covered in dust. Ultimately, while these are assumptions, it remains a fascinating historical site, superbly preserved yet hardly studied.
Don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing stories.